right.
So you've been invited to have your piece performed at our Call for Scores, which I'm really excited about. Um, and before we talk about your piece, I just wanted to get sort of like a little bit of a backwards looking from you about how you got into music in the first place.
Yeah. Well, it's a long story. I'm young, but I guess it started, the typical you're fooling around on the piano at home, and your mother decides to give you piano lessons at 7 years old. And so I took to it very easily, and I loved it. I was one of those kids that just loved to practice. And it was in the basement, and a lot of times I'd practice on the television commercials.
With them or to cover them up?
Yeah, just to pass the time, right? But yeah, and in the end, I became a very good sight reader. So I went through repertoire really fast. And by the time I was 15, I had my grade 10, and had taken bass lessons in grade school, and sang in choirs and played in all kinds of bands and orchestras through high school, and was a accompanist for all the musicals in high school. So I could really get my hands into music. And at the time, I think I was 15, and I was cleaning tables for $1.10 an hour.
Wow.
And then a job came up for a piano teaching in studio, and that was $5 an hour. That looked a lot better to me.
And did your mom take you all through those different levels of the RCM, like right up through your grade 10 and everything?
Sorry, did my mom, did you say?
Did your mother who taught you piano, was
No,
she
my
your
mother
primary?
didn't teach me. I had a
Oh,
I had
okay.
a teacher for my whole,
Oh, okay, I
but
see.
she
Yeah.
she drove me and paid for it.
Okay, that makes more
Yeah,
sense.
back, yeah,
I mean, you know.
yeah, and um, yeah, it was something I loved. I mean, when you talk about, how you got started and everything, I really, I could have a car. I had car payments. I was only 16. I could afford a car, and I got an apartment. And I was only 16, just off a teaching job, right? And then I could branch out there. And when I was 18, I started working for the local theater company and doing all their musicals. You could do 2 a year and make a good living. And so that's kind of how I got started. But all my friends at the time in the 70s, they were guitar players, and here I was in this classical world studying theory when I was 12 years old, and not really making connections to music, just having pencil and paper work. And finally, I picked up a guitar when I was about, I don't know, 18, 19, and finally it all clicked. All the theory clicked. And so, sometimes it's going into another instrument to really find out more about music, because you're so trained, you know.
Yeah, definitely you feel like the theory and the music playing is very separate when you're trained classically.
Yeah, yeah.
And so you only started to compose when you started playing the guitar.
Yeah, it kind of, well,
Maybe?
I still remember the very first song I ever wrote, just a silly teenager angst kind of a song. And yeah, but yeah, I had kids very young. And so everything just stopped. And but songwriting was always kind of there. I mean, it was the time of rock and roll and bands, and things were going on. There was so much going on, so much music coming through. Um, Composing actually started in university
Okay.
when I finally got there after kids as a mature student, and I was in my fourth year, and the composition teacher was having a composer festival. So I said, oh, okay, do I get marks or money for this? And
That's
he
a
said,
good question.
nothing, you don't get nothing.
Oh,
But anyways, I just wanted to have a go at some of the things that I was hearing all the time. And so I wrote a piece for flute and piano, and it was widely received. And so it just gave me confidence that, you know, this is worthwhile. This is and actually fun. Now, finale hadn't come out yet. So this
were
was
you
all
doing everything by hand in that case?
everything by hand.
Oh,
I still have
wow.
the scores. They're beautiful, and all inked in, It's just, yeah. And, and then we had to compose for our contemporary composition course in our fourth year. And that was fun. I just really loved it. Um, so that's how it all kind of started. Then my daughter was a cellist. She studied at Laurier, and in her fourth year, she needed a contemporary composer, right, for her final recital. So I said, "I'll write you something."
That's pretty neat.
Yeah, that was neat. And I had just gotten back. I had taken a sabbatical from teaching. I was a grade school teacher and music on Rotary, and I took a sabbatical and traveled for about 8 months and went to India. And I came back with all these ideas. I studied at this cultural center and learned tabla and some Carnatic singing and things like that. And and but all this music was going on in my head, and I had a little pocket recorder, so I was recording all these temples and everything, and I was getting all these ideas. So I threw it down for my daughter's grad, and she wasn't that excited about it.
And that would have been your miniatures in India,
That was
the
miniatures
suite
in
for
India,
cello.
yeah.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I had a summer job teaching for the Niagara Symphony, doing the jazz program there, and the cellist at the time, I was quite brave in those days, and I said, "Hey, do you want to try my piece?" And he loved it. The response was really, really good, and he still performs it regularly. And then he gave me a commission to write some more. So, I've had such fantastic support, local support. You wouldn't believe, what we had here in Niagara. You could go to Toronto, and it was easy to go to Toronto. You could go to Buffalo and hear, world class, music. And, when you're young and you're 16, you got a car, you're driving to Massey Hall, you're going to Maple Leaf Gardens, you're seeing Pink Floyd, you're doing the whole thing, right? And, and I even have to credit my grade 4 music teacher. She taught us how to sight sing. Can you believe it?
That's
Like
pretty
with
impressive at grade 4, yeah.
Oh, grade 4, like, and I was learning it in my theory anyways, but all the solfa and everything, and I thought, if it weren't for her, I wouldn't be able to look at a piece of music and know what it sounded like unless someone else taught me down the road. But grade 4, I thought, jeepers. Anyways,
Yeah, I mean, having music taught side by side in school is so important. I
yeah,
know I,
yeah.
I had that too, not to the same extent. We had a band program, I think this started in grade 6 or 7,
Oh, great.
so much later, but it does feel like it's being pushed out still, which makes
It
me
it
very
does.
unhappy.
And that's why I left. I said, I'm not doing this to kids anymore. I'm not giving them a music mark when I only saw them 3 times. I'm not doing that. And yeah, my last year, they gave me 600 kids, music on Rotary, pushing a cart around, not even a room. And I said,
That's a
that's
lot.
it. That's it for me. Someone else can do the job.
Yeah,
But I
that's a
had some
lot.
good years. I did have some good years in the elementary panel, where I saw those kids a lot. And boy, the difference and the joy that they had from it. I still have kids coming back to me now and saying, the first person who put an instrument in my hands,
Yeah, I think a lot of kids remember their music teachers. At
Oh,
least I
good.
hope they do. Feel like we've already talked quite a bit about your influences, but do you have any like specific musical influences that come out in your
Yeah,
composing that you want to talk
yeah, of
about?
course. Um, Well, in the beginning, I was writing a lot of songs, and of course, Tom Waits was right up there. Kate and Anna McGarrigle was right up there. Anybody who played the piano, Fats Waller, Thelonious Monk. I mean, I played a lot of Ravel in university. I just loved it. My first year, I was struggling with arm issues and couldn't use my right hand. So my professor gave me the left hand concerto, and I thought, this is amazing. This is just amazing. And so I still think of that Tombeau de Couperin a lot. Um, so that was a big influence. Let's see, what else did I write down here?
As an oboist, I also think about that piece a lot.
Do you?
I do. So it's on every audition.
Oh, is it really? Oh, it's just a brilliant suite.
I think it's better on piano.
It's so, oh, that toccata. Oh, that's my next mission. I want to write my own toccata. See, this is the kind of the thing, when I heard something, I thought, I want to try that. I wanted to give it a go. And so, yeah, Stefan Grappelli, I started listening to jazz in the 80s when everyone was still listening to pop music. I just turned right back to the 20s and, just really embraced the whole jazz genre as much as I could. And there was a lot of it going around here, really world-class musicians just in your local bar. So it was really, really there. Let's see, what else did I write here?
Did you play any jazz just out of curiosity, or did you just
I did. I'd have
yeah.
gigs here and there, and I've written jazz pieces. I call myself a jazz student because, I never went to university for it. I still marvel at the whole genre. So there's so much to learn still for me. So did I play it? Yeah. When somebody, was mostly for singers, right? For accompanying singers. And also, I wanted to mention that for 25 years, five women got together and did a benefit concert once a year. We got together for our local women's shelter. And during that time, there was jazz being played quite a bit. But our mandate was also to showcase our own original work. And so we were called Women in Music for years, but then this brilliant fellow said, "Why don't you call yourself Broadband?" So we had
That's amazing.
Yeah. So we haven't played in a while, but we're still Broadband. And but once a year wasn't enough for me, and I was doing a lot of songwriting at the time. So one of the gals and we branched off and we formed a duo called Stewed Roots. And I picked up the accordion, and it's a tiny one. It's not a heavy one. And it allowed me to sit in on gigs and just be a little bit more transportable.
But a keyboard, yeah.
Instead of
Anything
hauling
you
a
can play
keyboard.
on as a pianist is usually pretty heavy.
Yeah. And like keyboards came a long way. I was hauling a Wurlitzer, and you need two people to carry those in the early days when I was playing in blues bands and things. So, yeah.
My cat's making some noise.
Yeah. I mean, influences too, my family, like everyone in my family played the piano. Everyone had their grade 8.
Yeah,
I'm
that's so
sitting here beside
interesting.
my grandfather's player piano. Like they used to sit around and sing, and everybody in my family, it was kind of a thing, right? Everyone took piano lessons.
Yeah, it's sort of in my family as well, but it sort of petered out as the generations
Yeah,
go on at this
now
point.
it's more guitar, isn't it? People, yeah. And I noticed it. I've been teaching piano over 50 years, and the decline in interest is quite monumental, actually. Yeah. So I probably digressed off your questions here.
A little bit. I have a little bit of info about your piece Pastures that we'll be playing. I
Yeah,
wondered if you sort of talk a little bit more about your inspiration for this piece.
absolutely. I was driving on the highway listening to CBC2, and this piece came on. I thought, whoa, I have to look this up. That was amazing. So it was called Affairs of the Heart by Marianne Mosetich. I'm sorry, I can't pronounce it very well. And it's a 23-minute violin concerto. And he started with this figure, and it was almost like a loop. So I said, this guy has blended contemporary, because all the pop world is using loops now, right? He's blended that with the old and the new, and he's blended it, and he's sustained interest for 23 minutes just doing these loops. I thought, how did he do that? I want to give that a go. So with Pastures, I found this MP3. Are you an oboe player?
I am an oboe player, yes.
Well, I found, I've got a synthesizer, and I found an MP3 with an oboe, beautiful oboe melody, and that's what starts Pastures. It's just a monody, accompaniment, and I thought this is a pastoral. That's and at the time it was COVID, and there's a lot of just depressed people and isolation, and the war broke out in Ukraine, and a lot of my friends were dying, and it just felt like I needed something that was uplifting, and that melody, that opening melody, was doing that for me. So I said, okay, I'm going to develop that, and I'm also going to use this old motet that I found on the shelf. And I'm going to put that in there. And so the first movement was done, and I called it Pastures. Then I just felt like that wasn't enough. I didn't, because the strings could do so much a piano could do with sustain and all these things. And I thought, no, I want to write more.
You have to play around a little bit more.
I want to play around a little bit more. And a friend of mine had just struggled with cancer and had passed away, and she was crazy about ravens. She had ravens all over her house. So again, I didn't want it to be depressing. I wanted it to be uplifting. So I called it Raven's Light. And I thought, this is her journey. She's had a bit of a struggle, but now she's dancing and she's going off. And so that second movement is really about her journey. And again, it was an experimentation in sustaining interest with just the simple figures. Simple. Like, why isn't that boring after 23 minutes?
Sure, but it isn't, is it?
No,
it really isn't.
But I learned so much because it was difficult. On paper, easy to play, right? But to make it part of the composition. So I was learning like how you really get into the germ of the notes. Like, what do they mean? They only have meaning, but because of what was before and what comes after. And when you're practicing, sometimes we don't see that. We just do this technical repetition. But when you're composing, it's different. It's so different and so exciting. I find it so exciting anyways, because I'm learning. I'm not even taking a course. And so, yeah, that's Pastures. Let me see. Oh, yeah.
I mean, go ahead.
Yeah, I often, I spent the winter doing it, and I like the winter because I close to hear lawnmowers, and I was often awake at 4 a.m. and that stillness at that time when your brain hasn't clicked into, the regular mundane parts of life, and your brain is still open, I would just scribble. I would just do whatever came out. And then, maybe the next day I'd look and I go, oh, I like that. Oh, I like that. I like that. But I really treasure those early mornings when, especially if you worked on it before you went to bed, because I believe the brain keeps going, keeps kind of working on it. And yeah.
I feel like during the pandemic, a lot of us that don't really get that pause experienced that. Like I know I did, where I was like, I have this time to think.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us get so busy that we forget how important having that time set aside is to just, to let your brain do its creative thing, because otherwise it's just going from task to task to task, and the creativity can really get lost.
Yeah.
But yeah, waking up early is something I struggle with, but I think it is worthwhile because it's before everything starts, right?
It is, yeah, but I go to bed really super early too.
Yeah, that's the trick. I've been told. You have to be militant about the bedtime, and I can never do that.
Yeah.